Welcome to Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan, a podcast about the art and hobby of miniature painting. I'm Mike.
And I'm Dan. Thank you very much for joining us for a journey to become better, braver, happier painters.
So before we get into our fantastic guest today, just a quick programming note. We'll have this episode and one more before the new year while we take a break and prep for our second anniversary show and just kind of enjoy family and friends.
Well, today Mike and I are elated to have an interview with an artist that we had the pleasure of meeting in person at Eric's painting class a few months ago. His skills made us look so bad that it was just great to have him on, and he's a pretty cool guy. So Will Hahn of Sick Willy's Miniature Art, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Oh man, sorry it took so long to get you on after the class. You know, time has just been crazy.
Oh yeah,
but
no,
you know,
I hear you. My end too, so it's good.
Right, you know, and yeah, everybody's schedule, like it seems as it gets closer to the holidays, just kind of explodes. So
yeah,
for sure. So you know, before we get kind of into main interview stuff, let's knock out your origin story first. Can you tell us a little bit how you got into this crazy hobby?
So, like many people, the gateway drug was definitely Warhammer. And I have been in and out for, several times over the years. I think that my brother and I, as kids, were introduced to Warhammer when we were visiting some family friends who lived in Germany. And I think they were introduced to it over there. That's when we first kind of got our taste of it. And then I remember... we came home, didn't think about it that much after that vacation. And then the family moved back to the US and they kind of hooked my brother and I on it. So we begged, we founded a local sort of like, not really a gaming store. I guess they sold the store sold all kinds of like sports memorabilia and had some like Magic the Gathering stuff and whatnot. But they had the Warhammer Fantasy Battles, like 5th edition starter set, which was the Lizardmen and Bretonnians. So nice. I think my brother and I begged my mom to get us that for one Christmas, and we split it. And I took the Lizardmen, and I gave my brother the Bretonnians because lizard people are super cool, and I didn't want to paint all that heraldry, so I gave it to my little brother who really couldn't paint all that heraldry. But that was my my first army. I had a group of friends who I used to play with, and then I think it was as I got a little bit older, that girls and gasoline syndrome hit,
right.
About 15, 16 years old, something like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to parties every weekend and I've better things to do with my time. And I kind of didn't really think about it for a long time. And then later in life, I was married with kids, and I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. And I had a pretty severe case of it. And it got to the point that just working daily life, everything had just become a serious struggle, as well as it prohibited me from doing one of my other main hobbies, which is hunting and fishing. I used to spend a lot of time outdoors, but I just couldn't physically do it anymore. And I remember going through treatment, and I was hooked up to an IV, getting IV antibiotics for like 5 or 6 hours a day.
Ooh.
And I was just going mad inside. And I don't know when the thought popped into my head thinking about Warhammer, but it just kind of popped in there. And I'm from Baltimore, and back when I used to play, the US Games Workshop headquarters used to be in Glen Burnie. So I actually like just pulled it up on my phone and see if it was still there. And of course it wasn't, but I did find a local GW in a town maybe like 10, 15 minutes from me. And I popped back in, and the store manager was awesome. I became friends with him, and I started collecting a new army, and it got me through a lot of hard times.
Nice.
And then
That's
from
awesome.
there, it just, escalated. I was really into gaming and everything for a while. And I think it was at my first Nova when I was exposed to the display painting aspect of it. And I got to see stuff from like Matt DiPietro, Eric Swinson, Sam Lenz, Vince, like see all of their stuff like in person. John Margiotta, who I had
Mm-hmm.
become friends with on CMON, and just seeing all of that and being exposed to it was just like this whole other undiscovered level, and it just hooked me kind of immediately. And yeah, from then it was just kind of, and then like COVID hit like not long after that, so I had a lot of time just to sit and paint and get good, I guess.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's funny that you have similar parts of it that to me, like I went to a Nova and saw the Roman display and
Mhm.
was like, what the holy hell is that?
Yeah.
That's not even, like it broke like every concept that I had of what we do. You know what I mean? And I was like, sign
Mhm.
me up for sure. I get it, man. But it seems you're feeling better, that you have chronic Lyme disease, but you're definitely recovered
Yeah,
at
I'm
least.
in a place where it's manageable, and I, normal life mostly. So
And so besides that, also you like to make your life harder at painting too by almost cutting off fingers too, right?
yeah.
I did see those photos finally. I was like, oh my God, what'd he do?
Did I show them to you in Virginia?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
sadly, yeah.
yeah.
But I also saw the one we do stalking before we do interviews, and so
Okay.
like I was looking through your Facebook
Sorry, the
page, and
hand.
I was like, good Lord, man.
Yeah, the actual photos I couldn't post on Instagram. There's
No.
no way I could actually post that. They were pretty gnarly. I did it's kind of funny. I remember sending a couple to Alfonso, and I think he said he threw up when he watched them or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was that was this, God, was it March, April? No, it was like last day in April. It was right before May. I
Mhm.
remember. And I was cutting a plinth. I was using a router, and I was trying to get kind of a last minute thing done for MPO,
Mhm.
and the router bit caught the plinth, kicked it out of my hand, and then my hand just went straight into the half-inch router bit at like full speed, and was a near amputation of my finger,
Jesus.
basically meaning that it cut through everything on the index finger of my right hand, which is my painting hand, and with the exception of a little bit of skin on my the thumb side of the hand. So it severed the nerve on my pinky finger side, shattered the bone completely through, and severed both tendons, the flexor and extensor tendons on the top and bottom. And fortunately, we are very close to Union Memorial Hospital, which is one of the best hand clinics in the world, I think. And they were able to put me back together pretty well.
Nice. Yeah, I saw all the how many screws or nails did you have they put in your hand? Screws?
There were 3 pins, I
Three
think.
pins.
And yeah, they went through the tip of my finger, through the first joint, into the all the way through the second joint.
So you too now can say that just like your models, you've been pinned as well.
Yeah, hey,
Yeah.
absolutely. What's
I'm
actually
sorry.
kind of funny was I actually had a surgery on the same finger, same hospital, I think like 7 or 8 years before that,
Oh wow.
when I had a tendon slip. I had to get another pin in there because I tore one of those tendons previously
Mm,
on that same hand. Not doing anything nearly as cool.
right.
So I'll just leave that up to mystery.
So Dan, how have you bled like that for your art or for your hobby? I haven't. No, I just
No, not that much. I mean, I've stuck a couple like drill bits through my tip of my fingers trying to pin things, but nah, not trying to take hands or feet off or
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
like
never
that. So,
dropped an X-Acto knife on your lap. That's always fun.
um, actually, I dropped one today and it landed on my foot, and I was just like, oh my gosh! But it was a flat. It was a flat chisel type, so it
Oh,
just
okay.
bounced off, and I was just like, oh man, if
Oh,
that
that's
was a
good.
pointy one, that shit would have been all the way through it.
I did it
Yeah.
like 2 days ago. I dropped the pointy one right on my thigh,
Oh, I haven't done the thigh, but I put in
And
the
I was like,
thigh.
oh,
I have my foot. Yeah.
that one's gonna bleed. That one's gonna bleed, and it did.
Jeez.
Well, when Dan and I took Roman's 3-day beginner class, somebody had borrowed my toolkit out of my book bag and just kind of threw it back in there. And as Dan remembers this, and I didn't even look, and I reached into my book bag and I came out and I had the X-Acto knife under my nail.
Oh, that's no fun.
And
Yeah,
I just remember like Roman looked over and he's kind of rolls his eyes and does this noise. Like, I'm like, do I pull it out? Like, like what's gonna happen? I'm scared.
That makes
You
me
should
cringe
have
every
all
time I hear that.
You should have all you need in that hobby bag. All you need is a little bit of super glue.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
So I was actually, when I was younger, I was a oyster shucker for years, and I worked at my family sells seafood. I worked at the raw bar there, and that was my first aid kit. Was literally super glue and like some alcohol. So if I cut my hand while working, clean it out with alcohol and then super glue the wound shut, and I was good to go in like 5 minutes.
That's chilling, but yeah, it's funny. They don't really do stitches anymore. Yeah, it's even when my son got a cut relatively recently, which back in the day would have been stitches. They just glued it and put a butterfly on it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were ahead of your time, Will. You were very
super glue. I'm telling you, super glue is great. Fixes all your flesh wounds.
So Dan, I'm going to let you take the next question on that. I'm going to recover a little bit from nearly losing a finger.
So you told us a little bit about your history and then what got you started, but really, what made you like get into wanting to be more competitive and take the path that you are on now for painting?
A lot of that first Nova, really just still again being exposed to that and learning from the other artists. So it was interesting. So like seeing a lot of that stuff in person, it was awe-inspiring, but at the same time, it also made it feel not so out of reach. I feel like so often we look at stuff online from all these, and we're exposed to all these incredible artists from all over the world. Especially you start looking at something like from Lan or Mark or Arnau or Kirill, and it's just mind-blowingly good. And of course back at that time, like I'd still look at stuff online from Matt or Sam or Eric or whatever, and it's just like, wow, that's so good. And just seeing it in person, it was a different, it just, I don't know, it made it feel not so far away, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Still like far and beyond what I was capable of at that time. Then also like learning from them as well, and kind of starting to learn how to kind of process that and turn it into something else. But I've always been a competitive person, very much so. In anything that I do, I like to, if I'm going to spend time at something, I like to be good at it. And this is something that I'd grown to love. So I wanted to be good at it. I mean, anything that I've been into over the years, any hobby or interest, I've always competed at it at some level. And this is something that I'm not going to say like really came naturally, but it, to a degree, it did come naturally for me. And I don't know how much of that was just natural or my interest in it and me pushing myself harder to learn and to, keep pushing on improving my skills. Yeah, I guess when it just, things just started to click, I guess. And then I just, kind of ran with it.
Okay.
Now, let me ask you this, a little bit off script here, if you don't mind, Dan. I apologize for kind of jumping in here, but so then, where you're at now, to put you a little bit on the spot, like kind of critique yourself as a painter. Like, what are your strengths, and where do you think you need to focus on or work on? Yeah, I know
I
it's
am
not a fun question.
no, it's okay. Just I'm really bad at critiquing my own work
Mhm,
because I am I, I think that I'm overly hard on myself.
mhm.
Um, and that's something that so many of my painting friends and mentors and everyone have always told me as well, that my biggest hurdle is getting out of my own way, and getting out of my own head,
Mhm.
because I look at something and whatever it is I'm painting, it can always be better. I can improve it more. I need to be pushing more and pushing more. And I think that's to be honest, that's my biggest weakness, is kind of not being able to let go, so to speak.
Mhm.
Um, Strengths, I don't know. It's just this is it's hard for me to peg something specific. Like I said, I'm terrible at critiquing my own work. Um,
All right, well, let's do it this way then.
mhm.
Let me ask you, because the weakness thing is awesome, because I think
Okay.
that is a true story for a lot of people, that they can't
Mhm.
get out of their own way. They can't, everything that they do sucks, instead of taking a step back and being able to realize when they've been successful. So let's
So for
talk.
sure, I like on that note,
Mhm,
like I have, like you guys can see me. I know the listeners won't be able to, but you see
mhm.
this whole second shelf down here.
Yeah.
This is
Mhm.
all unfinished projects that I got like half, three quarters, 2/3 of the way through. And I got in my own head, or I got bored, or I got frustrated, like this isn't going to work. And then I stop and I start something new. And it's been a
Mhm.
bad habit that I've developed that I'm trying to get out of.
Yeah, you know what? You killed the question for later, but that's
Okay.
okay. No, that's all right. I'm not going to ask that question later, because I think it might be a different type of rabbit hole. But for as far as successes go,
Mhm.
let's do it this way, or strengths go. You have the piece Scarlet,
Yeah.
just won People's Choice for the Heavier Metal Painting, the probably largest online painting competition, right? When you look at that piece, what are the things about it that you like about that piece?
I was so happy about that red.
Yeah.
Sorry, like I'm not gonna lie, like that red was, it was hard, it was frustrating, but once I figured it out, and it just like I am really happy with that, because in hand it explodes, like it screams. Because so what it actually is so when you paint red, and the nature of that color, oftentimes like your highlights are the most saturated version of red, whatever you're using, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, excluding specular highlights and light reflecting whatnot. um and I felt like some of my like actual paints, like my purest pigment red paints, were not strong enough for what I wanted. So I ended up saying like, okay, how can I saturate this peak even more?
Mm-hmm.
And I used fluorescence. So I
Nice.
actually incorporated like, it's like undercoats of white for the value, and then I used like fluorescent magenta to keep it cold, and then I used fluorescent red on top of that to get the tone that I wanted. And then I'm using my most saturated reds, which would normally be the highlight, but I'm shifting them down more towards midtones.
Okay.
So I'm like I kind of was able to extend the range of red out beyond what it would normally have been with just my normal red paints. And I'm talking about like red paints, like my boldest, like naphthol reds, or like cadmium red, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's more explosive than that. And that was something I was really, really happy with. Proud of
You
that
don't say the marble.
piece.
If you don't mention the marble on that, I'm going to kill you, because the
I
marble is
actually
stupid.
wasn't going to. I
Oh my
was going to say something about the base build. Okay, the
god.
base build. Like I was happy with that, because the Gothic arch thing, like all of that is entirely built out of milliput and plasticard.
Nice. That's a
Um,
success for sure.
yeah, so I was pretty stoked with it. There was a lot of like, stenciling it and cutting with an X-Acto knife, and shaping and trying to get the shapes right. And um, it's one of those things that, and like for the marble, actually the marble was probably like one of the easiest things to do on that model, for sure. It was just a variation of the baby wipe method that so many of us have used or know to use. So that actually went by really, really quickly, thankfully, because I was running behind on getting that thing done in time for Headbanger.
Well, that's kind of the story, or like from talking with you at Nova, that's kind of the story of your life. You're kind of like, oh crap, I got to finish,
Yeah, dude. No, it absolutely is. But for the most part, I've never I don't really miss deadlines. I'm always up to the very end. Right. I can't remember which one it was. Yeah, I think it was for Headbanger, and that was like the furthest in advance I think I had ever submitted like models or photos to an online contest, and I think it was like an hour before the deadline closed. Like every single thing else, like nice. Every time I entered like Miniature Monthly Masters or MPO or even MFCA this year, when I submitted photos to MFCA, it was all like somewhere between like maybe 20 minutes before the deadline up to like literally seconds. Like I've literally like, it's like upload and then the clock strikes like exactly the hour where it stops to upload. Like, and it's it's pretty bad. I think my mom had this, she has this one of those little signs in her kitchen, and it says, if it weren't for the last minute, I wouldn't get anything done. And that totally came to me, like 100%. But as long as it's before the deadline, it's before the deadline.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Dan. I'll let you take. I keep monopolizing the conversation.
See, it's like I'm not even here.
Right.
So, Mike asked you about like strengths and weaknesses, and we all know this. I'll just piggyback on what he said. It's really difficult to really to look inside and see what we're faced with and what we're good at and things. But as you're painting right now and you're doing some of your projects, what's something that's a real challenge? You're like, man, I really want to get this down. And you had a great example about your reds. Mm-hmm. Is there something else out there that you're like, man, I really
recently
wish I could just nail that?
One of the things that has been driving me crazy, absolutely crazy, is gold, non-metallic gold. Okay. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I've noticed, there's not that many painters out there. There's very few that can paint tonally correct non-metallic gold based on the environment that the model is in. And if you really sit and you evaluate the tonal spectrum which gold actually reflects, and like a quick example, like gold doesn't reflect colors like blue and purple. They show up differently. Like the spectrum of pure gold, it just physically doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So trying to understand the place where I'm trying to represent this model and what would be in the environment and reflecting in there. So understanding, first off, nailing down in my head the input for the reflection, and then translating it into that paint and getting the output that is tonally correct. And there are so few painters out there that actually do it really right. Okay. And there's something that's different. There's different between being physically correct and being right and being aesthetically pleasing. In the end of the day, aesthetically pleasing should win out. Okay. To create a dynamic piece. But I think that one of the most important things to do to be able to make the most aesthetically pleasing piece that you want is you need to understand those physically correct concepts before you can put them into your own head and then spit out something more artistic. It's something that I feel is sort of necessary for an elevated product. And it is, to say the least, it's mind-bending. It's absolutely mind-bending for me, because it's translating these physics concepts of light into the, it's what you would call like additive light theory, into subtractive pigment theory, and then how each of these different pigments react and come together on the model to represent that color, and to still get all the luminosity correct in the right portions of the fractions. And it's been driving me nuts. And that's actually, I don't know if you guys saw the work in progress of Arthur. But I was trying to do it on that, and I was banging my head against the wall, and I got so mad. And Arthur kind of hit the shelf for a little bit. I do want to come back to them. But it's hard. Like I've heard people say before that, like, oh, if you're going to learn non-metallics, do gold first. It's the easiest. It's not. Gold is one of the hardest non-metallics to paint well. Mm-hmm. It's easy to paint to a low standard. It's hard to paint really, really well. And when I mean really, really well, I'm talking about like world-class well. It's freaking hard.
Yeah, I think for painters though too, like gold is like an easy introduction to kind of that concept of light and shadow. What you're talking about, you're what even what you're talking about is going beyond like sky earth. You know what I mean? Like you're like that's not even. I don't know.
Yeah, that's in the dust.
Yeah, right. It's not even like. I know. I think I'm probably gonna have, when I listen and edit this, I'm probably gonna have to bust out a art dictionary, and be like, "What did he just say?"
Yeah.
Luma, what?
That just happened.
Yeah, no. I mean, it makes sense that. I mean, that's that's kind of a huge challenge for anybody. I think maybe two, Lan and Carol, right? Or those are the only two that
Lan doesn't. Lan doesn't even really do it that much. I've been poring over Lan's work. Mm-hmm. I've seen more of it in Arnau's.
Okay. You don't think so in the Aries model? I would say the Aries model that Lan did, it's certainly environmentally, or maybe it's
no, it is. But so Lan is technically amazing, and I've had this conversation with so many people. I mean, he's literally undisputably. For me, top 4 in the world, like undisputably. But one of the things that I find with him is that I feel like a lot of his non-metallics, they are, in a way, or he represents the models almost in a vacuum.
Okay, that's fair.
They are perfect. Like in a vacuum, his rendering is perfect, absolutely perfect. But it's in a vacuum. Kirill is better at it. Mm-hmm. Kirill, like for this specific thing, and I've noticed it on Kirill, and they're like, and I think it's really interesting studying Kirill because it's as much his decisions of the things he's adding and the things he's choosing to leave out. Mm-hmm. Because if you add everything in, it's too much. At the end of the day, we're still limited by the scale and what we can represent. We're limited by physics. Right. I remember looking over. I'm like pulling up Lan's thing. I'm going to look at it again. No, yeah, it is. But again, that's steel.
Is it?
Steel,
I thought it was.
It's not gold, and that's why I thought I was looking at it to see if there's any gold on it. That's all steel or silver, which is as far as environmental contamination and the colors. It's so much easier than on a colored metal.
I really thought his Aries was gold. Oh, gold.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're saying Aries. I'm thinking of Hades, the one that he just did.
Oh no, I'm thinking of
Aries.
The Aries.
Yeah. Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that one he did a while back.
Yeah, it's an older piece for sure. Now
you might have to look at that. Now
his work is
scroll through.
It's absolutely stunning.
So good. Oh, this is Kirill, not.
And there are so many. I mean, yeah, I think you're right though on the money. There are aesthetically pleasing artists out there, like like Andy Wardle does a fantastic aesthetically pleasing gold, but it's not really environmentally effective. It's light shadow affected, but it's not like you're not looking at it and go, oh, that green is reflecting as blue because it's yellow gold. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that type of...
Exactly. And I think, and the difference, like, just like Andy, just like, Lan is just, it's so technically good.
Yes.
Perfect that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for him.
Too. That's fair.
And I think that's part of their style, and that's what makes the two of them so damn good.
Right. Yeah, damn Europeans, man.
We'll catch up. I'm trying my best. We'll catch up. We'll catch them.
I am not worried about the state of U.S. miniature painting, especially after that class and just what I mean, there was some talent in that Eric's class that people that I had never even heard of from Richmond, and I'm like, God damn, those are fantastic painters, you know?
Yeah, especially those the two guys that paint for Oscar's studio.
Right, exactly, right. You know, and I'm like, geez, you know, that's three at least in Richmond that we know of that are fantastic, because you have Oscar Lars as well, and then you and Dave in Baltimore, Bourbon Brush, I guess is what his handle goes on. Yeah, we're and then we have Devin in Winchester, Virginia, who's a pretty good painter as well, and of course Eric representing Southern Virginia. So, you know, yeah, I mean, it's I'm not worried about the state of U.S. painting, man. Even just in this area, it's coming along super fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you look at guys like, I mean, still, you know, like, Matt DiPietro and Aaron Lovejoy and I just draw a blank. Steve. Oh my God, Steve's amazing.
Steve Rodriguez, yeah.
Steve Garcia. Steven Garcia. He's
Garcia
fantastic.
Texas, yeah.
And then if you guys ever heard of Quarter Paint, Josh Berman, he's really good. And Rhett Jenkins is coming up pretty hard too, man. He's been putting on some really cool stuff. A lot of
Sam
there's
Midwest
it's
too.
nice to
Sam
see.
Lenz, yeah.
Oh yeah, Sam and John and Vince and
Vince,
everybody. There's like, we could go on. Like, U.S. is a big place. You know, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of hidden talent.
And I feel like our community is finally doing what Europe used to do, right? Like, they had all those painting competitions. They all were close together. Now I feel like everybody in the U.S. is starting to getting to know everybody in the U.S. Like, I feel like maybe COVID kind of actually jump started
for sure. And before we move on to this, I got to shout out Chris Surrey, Anthony Wang, and David Powell as well.
Hell yes. Well, David Powell, man. David Powell's like my original idol. Like, I was explaining, when I don't remember who we were talking to on the podcast, but after I saw Roman's work, I was kind of like, okay, I started scouring like Facebook and everything, and I'm like, God damn it. Everybody's European. You know, like, do we have any good U.S. artists? And the first artist that I came across that was an American artist that I was like, David holy Powell's crap, we're really as good. We have some people as good, was David Powell's work.
I was actually painting with Powell and Eric on Sunday on a hangout.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, and then I came across Matt DiPietro's stuff too, and you know, and Matt is the crossover guy. So is David. They both do. They dabble in historicals and vehicles and all that stuff too.
I'd like to do a historical at some point. But to your point about you know, the U.S. is sort of doing what Europe used to. If you're talking about, you know, exchange of ideas and stuff like that, I do agree with you that COVID has helped that a lot, because the biggest thing that I think that we had before in American miniature painting, kind of one of the issues, is how big the U.S. is and how spread apart we are geographically. You know, you can't really, like, there's the concentration of really high-end painters, it's really dispersed all over the country, so you didn't really have the access that you may have in Europe. And with the advent of COVID forcing so many of us home and into the online community, which existed, I think, before, but it not necessarily with the same oomph. And I think those things kind of combined are making more the community more global, I think, even than it was before. And then with that global community, you know, you have more of that exchange of ideas, exchange of information, being able to take classes and coaching from anybody anywhere that's offering it.
Right.
You know, like I was able to learn from Richard Gray and Sergio Calvo and Banshee now. And I started off with Aaron Lovejoy. He was like he was my first mentor. And but still, like, the access we have now is, I think, only good for miniature painting as a whole, because you're going to start seeing more people who are getting good.
Yeah. And you know, and that's it's neat too. What I think I find interesting is one of the things I complain about modern NBA is, like, back in my day watching the NBA, every team had a player, right? You thought Rockets, you thought You thought what's his name, Hakeem Olajuwon, the Trailblazers, of course, were Clyde Drexler, Bulls, Michael Jordan. Like, and I feel like U.S. painting is starting to pick up that way, because like now I think of narrative painting, I think of Chris Surhey.
Absolutely.
Like in the way he writes the stories. I think of technical exceptionalism. I think of Matt DiPietro. Like just
or Steve or Eric. They're on that level,
absolutely.
Man.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but I feel like we're starting to get painters that have identities, or a crazy idea guy that really executes Sam, like Sam Lenz, and stuff along those lines. We're all having that. I don't know. I feel like we're beyond a renaissance. We're kind of like in a surge. You know what I mean? In U.S. painting, which is awesome. And so
absolutely.
Again,
we have lots of ideas. Some of us are more creative than others. Some of us are able to just dream up things and able to paint it. So where do you get your inspiration?
It can just kind of happen from all over the place. I think that I do try to look at a lot of like Instagram and stuff like that, fantasy art. I love fantasy and sci-fi movies and shows and productions like that. I think that you can get a lot of good ideas from that. I think that filling your brain with these images, these ideas, other artworks, stuff like that is kind of like your bank, right? You fill your brain with it, you shove it in the back of your mind, and then when it comes to a miniature or something like that, it's kind of pick up the model, and sometimes it just sort of strikes like I can see this character in this place, with this ambience, with this lighting, and it all just kind of sticks and comes in, and it's like an idea from the start. For me, sometimes it is that, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's I just really like this model and I think it's cool, and I start painting it, and as I'm painting it, those ideas kind of start to come together. So, for instance, like Scarlet, I had a very specific idea from the get-go. I got that model, I was looking at it, I'm like, I'm gonna do it like this, with the shape of the architecture, the color composition, bold red robe sticking out against this dark, cold, stark, scene. And then Oni, a lot of that started to come later, like the idea of putting like the journal entries around the base and the story that came with it, that actually developed as I was painting it. Like I did know I wanted to kind of put him in like a forest or jungle or something like that, because that was necessary to make the red work with like sort of the greens on the metallics that I did. So what's interesting about that model is it doesn't work at all without that base. If I took the Oni off and put him in front of like black or white or gray backdrop, anything neutral, the focus and the lighting, everything's completely off. It looks totally wrong. But by putting his red skin in that forest background, it forces the focus exactly where I wanted it to be.
That makes sense too, because of complementary colors kind of pulling it all through. So then I guess it's kind of, I don't know, a follow on to kind of what Dan had asked. Do you find it's more often that you have the idea and then look for the miniature, or you have the miniature and then the idea comes after
I'm a serial miniature buyer, so it's the latter. So I kind of like I have a I see something and I'm like, oh, that's super cool, and then like I get it, and it just kind of goes in. And what'll happen is sometimes like I'll even get a miniature, and it's just something really cool, and I'll have it, and then at a later point, like an idea just kind of pops into my head, and I'm like, this model would be perfect for that.
Okay. Nice.
Occasionally,
you ever have to go, where the hell did I put that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. How many old Games Workshop boxes do I have to move out of the way to get to the model that I want?
Nice. You know, this is a question I was going to ask, but you kind of killed it by talking about the case behind you. Was
It's okay. We can.
That's okay.
Make me live my shame.
No, it's not even really just that. It was just basically, not to put you on the spot,
right?
But has there been a project that you've gotten pretty close to completion and been like, oh yeah, that's not working, or that's not going to work?
So I try to figure out early on if it's not going to work. Okay, because there's nothing worse than putting a whole bunch of effort into something and then realizing it's just not going to work. It's the worst feeling ever, because it just feels like time wasted. Which, to that point, actually, if you're ever painting anything, it's not time wasted, because you're learning by doing. One of my grandfather, one of my favorite quotes from him is, "You learn the right thing to do by effing up." Okay, so making mistakes is a good thing as long as you're learning from them, right? But if it's not going to work in the end, like, I mean, like, again, that's something that I try to figure out at the beginning. But there are times where I'll get to a point and I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. Okay. Sometimes there's these projects, sometimes it's something where I'm just like, okay, I need to sit on this for a little bit and I need to work it out in my brain, how I'm going to keep going, how I'm going to keep approaching this. Sometimes it's a little bit of that hobby ADD, where it's just like, I want this new shiny thing. Like, maybe I'm like mid-project and it's like, oh, that Kickstarter I ordered like 8 months ago is finally here. Okay, let's open it up and check all these out. Like, these are super cool. I got to do this now, you know?
I can't relate to that at all.
So yeah, so it can be a lot of things. So yeah, trying to figure out if it'll work or not is definitely my best advice. Is figure that out at the beginning, you know. There are things, like, I feel like every single project you are going to come to hurdles. You know, I don't think I have never had a project where everything came easy. It doesn't. Like, there are going to be things that are going to be hard. You're going to have to figure things out, especially if you're pushing yourself to do new techniques, try new things. Like, it's not easy. Like, it takes effort. It takes trying and failing and keeping and trying. And the important thing is to, when you get it, just remember what it is that you did and then apply it towards future projects. The abandoned ones, I don't think they're abandoned. They're in progress. They're in progress. And the strongest ones I will come back to. Like, even when I sit here and paint, like, and I'm working on new projects, like, I look back over and there's at least 4 projects sitting on that shelf that I'm like, I do want to continue this. I do want to finish this project. Like, I don't want, like, there's only a couple that I'm just like, man, I don't really care about that. But it's just, for me, it's time.
Time's always a problem.
You know, if I could get about 16 more hours a day, I'd be all right.
Even then, it's not enough.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the term project a lot of times. So what in your project do you enjoy most? Because I'm assuming your project is the start all the way through. Do you enjoy, like, the modeling aspect? Do you enjoy basing or creating a base or background, or do you like the painting? What do you really enjoy the most? The painting, just straight up painting, huh?
Painting. No, that's it. I do bases because I have to. It helps me set the scene, and I hate gap filling. Screw gap filling and mold lines. I hate it. There have been many projects that I've gotten, like, or minis, I'm like, this model's going to be so cool. And then I open it up and there's just like mold slip and all this other crap, and the pieces don't go together. I'm like, oh, this sucks. This is never getting painted. Bye.
Will, you now have an older brother.
Yeah.
I'm now your older brother. We are from the same ilk on that one. I hate it.
I'm not going to throw any companies under the bus, but there are definitely some that are better than others.
Amen.
Oh, darn it. So, Well, that
Yeah,
was
easy
that
one.
was that was
That
an easy one then.
Painting done.
So when you're dealing with your projects, do you have a particular scale that you like to work on? Is there a particular millimeter size that's just more fun to paint, or one that you're like, hey, I can really knock these things out? Because it just happens to just flow.
Really knock these things out. You're talking to the wrong person for that one. I'm actually working on a project now that it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like paint this really quick. I'm gonna knock it out, and then let me show you the base that I built for it.
Oh, that's real quick.
For anybody not looking, it's like 9 inches tall by like 5 inches wide, or something ridiculous. Actually, it's probably 5 with the spikes, but I think the base size is only 3.
Yeah, it's on channel 1 for everybody that's watching.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
It's the plinth is a 3x3, and then the height of like the backdrops, it's 8.5 inches.
Yeah,
so that's and then the figure to go on it. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna like paint something quick and like not care and get it done in 2 weeks. Like, was like,
I think
that was 4 weeks ago.
Don't think that's
4
a really
weeks
big
ago.
So I like my favorite thing are probably like larger 75 millimeters. I do really like, or I love busts. I love painting busts. Not necessarily overly huge busts though. Like,
right.
But just kind of like there's like, a sweet spot. And also it does depend on the model, and the sculpt, and sometimes if the sculpt is really good, it can be out of that range that I really like to do, and it's still really enjoyable and really fun for me. Yeah, I'd say probably like I said, like larger 75 millimeters. Like so if it's like a 75 millimeter scale, like orc or something like that, then it tends to be a little bit bigger. So I'd probably say like true scale, something around like the 90-ish millimeter range. I think they're awesome because it allows you to do so much more.
What was your first 90 or first larger figure that you painted?
Was a bust, I think.
It was a bust?
Oh no. Well, so there's I assume we're not talking about Games Workshop stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Because I painted plenty of monsters. My first when I got back into it, like my first actual like Warhammer AOS army was Beastclaw Raiders. Oh, and nice. I specifically picked that because it's like I only had to paint like 5 models. Right. And they were big, but it's like 5 models. Cool, I'm good. But I guess so I was still painting, primarily gaming stuff. But the first thing I'm doing was a creature caster model, I think, if you want to call it that. Even though it was still like in my mind at that time, it was still more of like a kind of like a gaming thing. But I guess it's not. It's kind of like a she's a demon. It was the lady with the butterfly wings, I think. Nurgly looking demon lady of anguish, I think. Yeah, Lady of Anguish, I think, was the first one, and then my first bust was a werewolf from Blackheart.
Oh, nice! I love their stuff.
Yeah, they do really cool stuff.
Have you painted a dragon yet?
No, and it's crazy that I haven't because I love dragons. Dragons are so cool, but I haven't. That's like I think a dream like project one day is to paint like one of the Carol Burdick dragons.
Yeah, there's a tiny one over there.
You see what's over my shoulder?
That's Smog.
Yeah.
Oh, you still working on him?
I remember you talking about.
Oh, good.
Almost done.
Good.
Almost done. Like I will deliver him on
cool,
Wednesday.
That's a cool model, man.
It's an iguana.
Damn. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. For sure. So I do have talking about large scale. Like I have the I did back the Nocturna Kickstarter, the Blood and Skulls one with the Mega Orc. Mm-hmm. So that's like he's probably dragon size when you put them all together. That might be a project for at some point. I actually kind of wanted to do him in a diorama with this guy as well, which is the Warg from the Hera Kickstarter.
Right.
But that's going to be like
that'll be awesome.
Yeah, it'll take me 2 years to paint it.
Right. Hey, so one of the things on it before, Dan's got a couple questions after this
Sure.
too, but correct me if I'm wrong. The Scarlet model is Witchhorn from Minework Games, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Did you buy anything else from them? Because I know one of the other painters that's a real good friend of the show, a guy named Michael Proctor.
Mm-hmm.
He and I are both like addicted to Minework Games
Mine
models.
works
Like,
awesome.
well, both of us have both versions of the Puppet Master. Did you get the Puppet Master?
No.
Oh.
I do have some other models from Minework.
Okay.
And a buddy of mine, I didn't back the Kickstarter because my buddy got all of it, and we're going to split it because
Okay.
it kind of worked out that the ones that I wanted were not the ones that he wanted.
Oh,
and
perfect.
so it's kind of like a nice even split. So when that gets delivered, he'll ship me the other ones from Italy.
Did you buy the bust of the Witchhorn bust?
No.
No,
I trust me, I really thought about it, but it's like, I've already painted this once. Like, I think that, and the other thing is, like, I think I've, with time, like the time that it takes me to do this with everything else going on, like my painting time is precious. And that's one of the things I've kind of realized more recently. I keep talking about all these Kickstarters I get in, but in the past few months, I've really started to realize, again, between work and the kids and everything else that I've got going on, like I'm trying to be more selective about the models that I paint, like, and kind of trying to be more realistic. Like, am I actually going to get to this? Like, or is this just going to be another thing that goes on the shelf that I'll never get to? And I've actually stopped myself from buying a lot of really awesome stuff that they've come out with recently. And I know that I won't get to it. So there are some other stuff that, like, as amazing as it is, like, I'm not gonna, I just can't,
That's funny because that is exactly what stopped me from backing the Minework Games one and the Arthur Legends of Arthur one from Big Child Creatives. I'm like, I want these models, but will I ever get through to paint that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm right there with you, man.
I feel that, man. Totally feel that. Like, I did break my rule because when Chimera put up Hades, I'm like, nope, that thing's cool. I'm buying it.
You're allowed those.
I'm gonna do it. It's like, I'm getting the paints anyway, so yeah, save on shipping.
Right, there you go. Hey, that was an economics decision, right?
Of course,
that's just basic
of course.
math. Come on,
of course.
So hey, we're gonna change gears here for a second for the remainder of the show.
Cool.
And we have had some offline conversations in Discord.
Yes, we have,
about this little teeny weeny thing that we're doing in February.
Hopefully not so teeny weeny.
Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a heck of a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. So can you talk to us about the classes you're going to be teaching at the Kill Team Open in Baltimore in mid-February?
I am actually really excited about this. So Ryan Wilfong, which is one of the organizers of the event, actually works for my wife at her company. He's the chef. And he knows that I'm into this. And I remember a while back, he came up to me and he was like, hey, I'm trying to do an event here. And would you be interested in doing some demos and classes? And I'm like, yeah, sure, dude, totally. We can do that. And then come to find out it's, a bigger event than I thought it was going to be. And that's okay. And that's actually awesome because it was the impetus for me to really look at doing convention style classes, which is something I've wanted to get into and do for a while. So I'm going to do, because it's a Kill Team event, it's most of the stuff's going to be on small scale figures. It'll be on Games Workshop stuff. We'll probably be doing Space Marines because the volumes on Space Marines are fantastic for teaching concepts. It's true. It really is. They are amazing models for teaching some of the things that I'm going to be going over. So I'll be doing 3 classes over the weekend. One of them is an introduction to directional lighting. So for all of the gamers out there that are, might paint in that edge highlight Games Workshop style and are interested in directional lighting, and I call it directional, not zenithal, because zenithal means it's coming from the top. Directional is somewhere else. So light source illuminating your miniature. That will be one. And then there will be an introduction to non-metallic metal. Not quite speed painting non-metallic metal, but an introduction to get a good product relatively quickly. And remember, I mean, it's relatively, because this is for a kill team, not an army. Right. So it'll be slower and more involved than you would want to do on like a 2,000 point army. But it will be quick enough that, techniques to get them on the table, and it'll be a lot of introduction to theory and where you're doing your highlights and your shadows to get a dynamic result. And then the last one will be a course on painting faces, so facial tones, the different color zones of the face, how you represent the volumes of the face, facial structure, stuff like that, and how we can represent that in a 32 millimeter miniature. Because so many of these squads that people have, that's like what I was saying, one of the best things about kill team or smaller squad based games. I mean, a lot of this stuff will be applicable to anybody who's listening that plays tabletop games. They're more squad based, or like Infinity or Kill Team or Warcry or Underworlds, whatever. Right. They're like the perfect medium for people who are gamers and display painting curious, or really just want to up their game and have something that not only you can play with, but is also visually impactful. Something that you can paint that you can really kind of be proud of to put on the table. That next step. So it's using these display painting concepts and real art theory concepts and applying them towards gaming models.
Yeah. So are these your first classes that you're teaching?
These are going to be my first like classroom classes. This is nice. me getting my feet wet, because I hope to do lots more of these style classes and some workshops and stuff like that in the future. Would love to do some weekenders and like some larger scale figs or busts and like really get into the nitty gritty.
It's my first time too. I'm teaching a class as well.
I know. Aren't you excited?
I'm nervous as shit.
Yeah. It'll be fine.
3 hours on composition is going to be, it's going to be interesting. We're going to see how we're going to pull that off. I have an idea about, I'll bounce this. If you don't mind me interrupting, Dan, let me bounce this idea off of it. So off you. So one of the things I was going to do is I have a friend here who does a lot of 3D printing. Mm-hmm. And so I was going to have him print like 5 or 6 different 32 millimeter figures. Mm-hmm. I was going to put them in an envelope, each one in an individual envelope, so they couldn't see it. And then after I do the composition and ideas and stuff along, like working through the composition part of the class, then this interactive part of the class was going to be that they have to pull out the mini and then kind of follow this process of like, what's the name of your mini, what's the title of your project, mm-hmm. and like all these things, like and everything has to be like gut reaction, not like you have to actually sit there and plan it out while they're kind of as the interaction.
I like that idea. Do you know what else you should do?
What?
You need to do a base. Have a base, a larger base, and then have each student take each of those minis and place it on the base and actually make the composition where it is most aesthetically pleasing, and then explain to you why.
That's some deep shit. I think they get a kick out of it, though.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to adapt it a little bit differently to I'm gonna pitch to teach at ReaperCon next year that nice. A thing called Lost in Translation, and like you and I talked about.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it, Eric's class.
Yeah, about it, and that kind of my skill set is probably I'm really good at the ideas, pretty good at executing, and my painting still needs to come up. I still have a lot to go on my painting and stuff like that, and so I'm trying to teach to my strengths to begin with. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so, Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I'm excited. I'm nervous as hell, but I'm nervous about it. But
You'll
I'm
do fine.
probably you might get hit with a slide deck before.
No
Hey,
worries,
Mike,
man. No worries, dude.
Jay is gnawing at the bit for us to get a class going, so that might be a good time to practice
Right.
before we go. I mean, we'll have right after
Time.
the holidays.
Yeah. Oh,
That
that's
gives
what I
us-
was going to ask you. Well, too. Thank you for reminding me that, Dan. What did you think of Game Garrison as a venue?
No, I liked it.
You liked it? Okay.
No, I liked it. Like I would come back.
Okay.
Like
Yeah,
I would
that's what
happily. I think it was Jay, who's the guy that runs the store, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'd happily because he actually, I think after the class was over, he asked me if I would like to come back and teach a workshop as well, and and I would, but that's future. I got some months and months down the road before I could even begin to organize that. Like,
well, we'll help you.
Yeah,
So
I have.
We help with
right
Eric.
now. I got so many irons in the fire, man. Like I said, work is crushing me. The kids, like the nanny was off for like a week. She took vacation, so I was like cleaning up there. And then my wife has all of her, because she's a wedding planner and caterer, so her schedule's nuts right now. And then I'm trying to finish like 3 different models before the end of January. One of which would be a bust entry for LVO. And then I have to get the curriculums done, test models done, everything for the end of February. And then also thinking about Golden Demon and Adepticon. Not only Golden Demon, because Eric's pushing me to enter P3 Grandmasters. So that's another project that would have to be done by the end of March. And then as soon as that's done, is this still, are we still on the show recording? Or okay. And then I'm not quite going to put on a show, but I will have a secret project in the works for next year.
Awesome. Good. Yeah.
So I'm working with a certain someone to do a certain something special for a specific show
Nice.
that is overseas that I will be traveling to, and it's going to be a big project. And this is something that it'll be my own. It's my own sort of concept, and we'll be bringing it to life together. And
That's awesome.
It's going to be big. It's going to take a lot of time and effort for that one, but I think it'll.
So I'm wondering, are you going to eat some pasta at this location?
Maybe. I love pasta. I will not be putting any pineapple on any pizza there, though.
Oh no, right?
I don't do that anyway. Because I think at Adepticon this year, Golden Demon is going to be pretty insane. Because what I've heard,
I bet that is a lot of fun to be there this year.
Yeah,
because it is going to be. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that I did learn recently is that I don't think that the UK Golden Demon is going to happen again. So that means with the US Golden Demon happening, that means everybody that would have been holding stuff for the UK Golden Demon this coming year is not going to be. So that's all coming here. So now that tactic of, okay, do I take this to the US or do I hold it for the UK one? The UK one's not happening. So this year is going to be insane. Like, you got to assume like anything that, I'm pretty sure I think I've heard that Ben's coming. I don't know. I haven't talked to Ben, but like, I know Andy's going to be bringing his A game. Richard's going to be bringing his A game. They've got a bunch of stuff to bring.
I'm hoping David Soper comes too. I love
that. Would be super cool. There's going to be a lot of people at Adepticon this year. I think it's going to be really fun.
It's going to be crazy. Like I wish I was able to go, but that's like a final college tours and everything and stuff like that with my oldest. Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah. It's in your future.
I know. Yeah. Thank God it's another
got a little time.
It's like, okay,
got some time
I've got 13 years. Actually, less than that.
I'm gonna tell you,
you got to start touring at like 16, 17. So what do I have, 11 years?
Man, it comes quick. I can't. It's really funny because my son he's a senior, but he's an October birthday, so he's already 18. And so it's been a weird adjustment for us because we went to get his shot records for school, and they're like, you can't have them.
No,
I'm like, why? Well, he's 18. He's got to get them.
He's got to get them.
Oh, I know. Isn't that a fun thing? You can't
Oh,
like
God.
make appointments. You're like, hey, yeah, I want to find out about this and that. They're like, sorry,
Dude,
they
that's-
can't give you that information.
That's gonna be
that's
gonna be my son too, because his birthday is literally like 2 days before the cutoff or something like that, or a day. So he's like, it's like the oldest you can be, like for your year is going to be my son.
Nice.
So
yeah, I totally
gonna
get
excel in sports. There you go.
But the other side for boys, they say it's really good. That's a really good thing for boys.
I'm happy for him. That was one of the things that I always hated growing up, was I was always young for my year, or on the younger end. And one of the things I hate, especially for sports, because I went to a private school, and in our sort of league, there was in North Baltimore, there are a lot of private schools like this, but some of the competing schools actually used to like hold kids back a lot per year, like an extra year. So a lot of my sports, I was actually competing against guys that were supposed to be my grade level, but they were 2 years older than me. And when you're like 14 and 15, like that's a big difference, you know? Yeah. And so I'm happy he doesn't have to contend with that.
Well, yeah, that's what was a big thing my son learned too, is that when he hit 15 in swimming, that's 15, 16, 17, and 18 is one age group in swimming. And it's brutal. And so you have like these lanky, tiny 15-year-olds swimming against these adult male 17 and 18-year-olds. And you're like, come on, really? And so when you see that 15-year-old win, you're like, holy shit, there's the next Michael Phelps.
That guy's good.
That kid's good, yeah.
See, I was, what did I do? I was a wrestler and I played rugby. So at least with wrestling, there was, a weight class. But still makes a lot of difference. And I played rugby later, fortunately. But still, like, there were so many times and I'm like running, I'm like trying to tackle these guys that are like 60 pounds heavier than me, and it was just that was a fun time.
That's hilarious. Yeah, man, it's rough. Dan, you want to handle the last one?
You can do it.
You sure? I got your name on it.
Are we already almost to the end?
We're almost.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's over. We're recording for over an hour, so.
Yeah.
Well, I guess for me that's pretty good, because I'm trying to keep it concise.
All right. Well, one of the things we usually do to wrap up the interviews, we ask typically if there's a miniature you'd like to see, but we know that
are we not doing lightning round?
We don't have to. It's up to you. I kind of have been.
We can do lightning round.
Yeah, all right, let's do the lightning round then. All right, do you want to do it, Dan? Or you want me to do it?
I think I know some of these
you
questions.
You can do it because I don't have a freaking clue about lightning round.
Lightning. Oh, yeah.
How is it that I know more about the lightning round than you do, Dan? And it's your podcast.
You probably listen to it more than I do.
Now, in Dan's defense, Dan is not a podcast listener. He listens on YouTube, and I am woefully behind on updating our YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to get the YouTube thing up to date, which is one of my goals in this holiday break time period. So all right. So we're gonna do the lightning round, and Dan's gonna learn. So I'm gonna try to switch it up a little bit. Maybe I'll throw in a new question or two for you there, Will. But the first question, of course, is when was the last time you drank your paint water?
Probably about like a year and a half ago. Because I know. Wait, just wait up. I switched cups. Okay, so I use a specific water cup pot. Actually, it's like one of my favorite things that Citadel has ever made. Is like their little water cup pot. It's kind of awesome. And then I also, whatever I'm drinking when I'm painting, it's coffee, tea, whiskey, or wine. So it's typically in a different glass or mug than my painting thing. And as I've built this new like desk, I have a little area on top that I use as a cup holder. So if anything that I'm drinking goes up top, and everything that I'm using down here, is for the brushes. However, literally, like I think it was like probably 5 days ago or something like that. I have a like the little like sort of ramekins, like a little stainless steel ramekin
Mm-hmm.
a little cup that I use, and I put my mediums in it. So at that point, it was a mix of drying retarder and some flow aid that I like to mix into my paint when I'm doing like really fine details. And I wasn't paying attention, and I went to wash my brush out and lick it, and I dipped my brush right into that drying retarder and sucked it off my brush, and I was like spitting and like wiping my tongue for like 20 minutes. It's freaking gross. Like I think my tongue started to actually go numb at that point.
Nice. Nice. If you, just a warning, if you use Liquitex flow improver at all, that does say toxic on the bottle. So
Yep. That's exactly what it was.
Nice.
It was what do I use? I actually use the Blick drying retarder, the Blick extender. I actually like it better than the Liquitex drying retarder, but it is absolutely Liquitex flow. Look at this nice weather bottle.
Nice. And that stuff
lasts for a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's got the airbrush marks on it, and
yeah, big time. All the drips, everything, all this paint splatters. I went through this. This is actually the second bottle because I didn't want to bring the whole bottle when I went to Virginia for Eric's class, so I poured stuff back into this bottle from a new bottle.
Very cool.
So it is possible to actually get through it. Okay, so
they last a long time though because do you do the 1-to-20 ratio too? Water to no.
I don't. So one of the things I've started doing, like with when I paint, like thinking about ratios or anything with that, I don't do any of it. I don't. I just do what flows and what works. Mm-hmm. I don't paint anything really via recipes. I think that's a big thing to kind of move towards in your painting is an organic process and not a scientific process, because art is not a recipe.
That I agree 100%. All right, back to the lightning round. Damn it, you're kind of making it not fast, right?
It's okay.
So the gods of the brush descend and say you can only paint with one paintbrush. What size brush? What brand brush?
Winsor Series 7 number 2.
Number 2. What is the deal with the number 2? And everybody's like, that's what everybody picks is the number 2 Winsor Newton.
Because the point is so good. Like you can still do details with it. Like you can like with a nice fresh number 2. Like you can still. I can pretty much do whatever I want to with it. Mm-hmm. Like even painting eyes on a Space Marine or something. Like it's still possible to do that. But it's got a nice big belly. And it holds a lot of paint, holds a lot of water. You can still do big, broad strokes on it. Like I've painted just entire busts with just the number 2. Like it's literally like if you could only have one brush, like that is the brush to have. Or I would say if not a Winsor number 2, then a Raphael 8404 2. Even though that Raphael is bigger, definitely much bigger. Than a Winsor, but I do really like the Raphaels as well. It's too bad they're so damn hard to find right now.
Well, Hahn, how often do you actually clean your paintbrushes? And when I mean clean them, not just rinse them in water.
Not that much.
I'm
pretty bad at it. I'm pretty bad at it. I'm really.
You abuse your tools, Will? You're a tool abuser, Will Hahn?
Very much so.
Excellent.
Tools are made to be used and replaced when they wear out.
Nice. So I give you a choice between acrylic inks, heavy body acrylics, or model paints.
Do Chimeras count as model paints?
Yes.
Model paints.
Model paints. Okay.
I would. And that's a hard one because a part of me just wants to be like, I don't want to play anymore. No, right. I'm not answering this because I'm going to use all of them. But I would say, because if you're going to classify Chimeras model paints, that gives me the access to pure pigments, right? Mm-hmm. And then model paints, there are so many other types of model paints around and different brands. They all have different uses, different strengths, different weaknesses. It just gives you the versatility that you really need. And if I really thin out some of those pure pigments are pretty damn strong. And you thin them out, like you can kind of make your own washes or something like that. And you can still get vibrancy or the illusion of it if you how you play with your shadows and stuff. So I would say like that would be my choice, because with inks only, then you're kind of limited with coverage, so to speak. There's just some issues there. And then I love heavy bodies. Like I love using heavy bodies, but I don't like painting details with heavy bodies. Like if I'm gonna get
Have
really
you tried the
fine, minute,
so flat ones yet? The liquid,
no,
you know, Top Golden just came out
I've
with Oso
heard of
matte.
them. I've heard of them. For heavy bodies, I use Scale Artist or Liquitex, just like standard Liquitex heavy bodies,
Everybody's
and that's pretty much what I lean on.
nice. Okay, so first thing that comes into your mind when I ask this question, no hesitation, you gotta just answer it. What is the next model you want to paint?
One of the Reina Roja ones. It came, Fauna was the first one that came to my mind, but also the Horn Goddess is another one that's like I think it's such a cool model. The Horn Goddess bust specifically.
Nice.
So I'm having a hard time actually deciding between that and there's another bust that I had a really specific idea for, but I've been sitting on it for a few months. And there's those are two of the busts that I want to get. One of those two I'd like to get done for LVO.
Very cool. Now, is there a model from a TV series, anything along those lines that you'd be interested in seeing come to life that hasn't been made yet? As you've probably heard, I always give the example of the Dark Tower series.
Yes.
Specifically, I want to see the Jay Lee artistic versions from the graphic novel come to life. What about you?
So I'm gonna give you two here. Okay. You know how they've been like, it's kind of a trend in the miniature world now where they're doing a lot of miniature lines based off of artists' work, like other two-dimensional artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we saw like there's a lot of Brahm out there, like Journeyman is doing all the Paul Bonner stuff. Yeah. And then like I talked about the Reina Roja, they did the Christopher Lavelle stuff. Like it's almost like, how come there's no like Boris Vallejo stuff out there?
Agreed.
You know, like even like I'd love to see some like Boris Vallejo girls and stuff, but not the bodybuilder ones. Like the more curvy ones, you know, with some like Boris Vallejo monsters and stuff. Like maybe like that, but like a more updated, not 80s style. Like let's do a more modern version of like some of his, you know, newer stuff or something. I think that would be cool. But
or the National Lampoon's vacation poster.
Yeah, right.
Let's translate that to a model. That would be
it would be. It'd be great. Actually, even like I have one of his art books, Dreams, the cover, and I think it's like the basis of it was I think it's Julie Bell, but like something like this. Like that'd be so cool in a miniature. Nice. I know you guys can't see it, but it's the cover art for Boris Vallejo's Dreams art book. You know,
nice. Yes,
like that would be fantastic as a model. But for the cheesy answer, okay. Also, I would love to see Mortal Kombat as miniatures. All of them. I want like Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, all of them. Nice. Like how cool would that be to have like and like sell it like a diorama like they've been like, you know, doing is like literally Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, like the epic battle. I played a lot of Mortal Kombat as a kid. Yeah.
Would you title the diorama "Get Over Here"? You know.
Yes.
or finish him or something along those lines.
Totally. Fatality.
All right. One of the things that we ask our artists is there a specific piece of advice that you can give our listeners as they continue on their journeys to become better, braver, happier painters?
So this is actually like a hard one. And I'll admit, because I listen to the show, I've actually thought about this before, and I still haven't come up with a good answer yet. I know that's probably not what you want to hear, but okay. A couple of things I'd say is like, I mean, don't take it too seriously in a way. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. And I know that's so much easier said than done because so many of us fall into that trap, and specifically me included. I talked about it earlier. Don't let it become not fun, you know, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about kind of enjoying what you do. And as long as you're as far as improvement goes, just take it one day at a time, learn from your mistakes, and slow and steady wins the race, I guess.
That's awesome. No, it's greatly appreciated. It's hard, I don't know, it's always hard to put things in concise, especially in the world of art. You know what I mean? Like, so concepts and stuff like that are easier to look at than necessarily explain.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes giving advice about a particular, anything in particular can be
there's so many different just little things, and honestly, going back to what I said before, like, art's not a recipe. Art's not, it's not a paint this color, then this color, then this color. It's not structured. It's organic. And learning how to flow, is something that I find that's very important. Kind of like, one of the things that I kind of liken it to is learning to drive a car. Okay. When you learn to drive a car or to race, I mean, especially anybody that learned how to drive a manual transmission or whatnot, like when you first get in, you're first learning, it's like you're thinking about your foot's on the clutch, like, well, I got to push this in, then I've got to think about which gear is which and whatnot. And as you get better and improve, you become more one with the car, with the vehicle. Like, if you're looking down at your feet or the shift knob or whatever, you're not going anywhere. But when you're to the point that you're looking at the horizon and you can see sort of the end project, and everything else starts to become more natural, and you start to feel it. Art, in a way, is, and specifically miniature painting, is like that. When you're not thinking about, like, how good this blend is, or like, is this the right color to put here, and you're thinking about the horizon, that end project, everything else just will fall into place, if that kind of makes sense. Is that kind of a good analogy?
You made me think of my daughter playing the cello, that her
same
music
thing.
Her playing gets better the less she looks at her hands, the more she focuses on her music. And so
100%. And that's exactly sort of the same thing. See, I tried to learn how to play music and I was god awful at it. I am so musically uninclined, it's not even funny. That's why I use the car analogy, because I did used to race, so that's kind of like, it kind of fits in my brain a little bit more. But it's exactly enough. What you're saying, like, so when you look at,
why don't you
go ahead.
No, you.
No, I was going to say, like, you're looking at a any rock star, musician, whatever, up on the stage, like, they're not like looking down at the frets, they're not looking down at what strings they're hitting and whatnot. They're feeling it. Like, at the end, like, you got to feel it, and then once you can feel it with your art, then your horizons it'll explode what you can do.
Nice. You just wrote my better, braver, happier statement. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Woohoo, got it. I don't have to think about it this time. So, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where to find you?
On Instagram at Sick Willy Miniature Art. And there's underscores instead of spaces. So sick_Willy, .. And then I'm on Putty and Paint as just Will Hahn. Will, last name's Hahn. And I actually do have a Facebook artist page under the same name, Sick Willy Miniature Art, but it's really new and I'm terrible at updating it. So, and I think I have like 20 followers or something there, because I'm terrible about posting on Facebook. But hopefully, as my schedule opens up a bit more, I'm going to be more active on that as well.
Hey, you've got more followers than we've got listeners, so that's good.
Hey,
we have our 7
coming
listeners.
Up in the world. I gotta.
So we will put active links in everywhere we post, so that way people can go right to you.
You guys are awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Will, for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Dude, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, man. I'm been super excited to do this. So,
listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan is a production of LTPTWMD. All rights reserved. No portion of this recording may be used without the express written consent of the host. The music is Death by a Thousand Questions by Springtide. Download from the Free Music Archive on a non-commercial attribution share-alike basis. All views and opinions expressed in the show are solely the views and opinions of the person who said them. All celebrity voices, if any, were impersonated and done so poorly.